passed away a couple of years ago. Our marriage had some problems, but I truly adored her and miss her every day. But since she passed, I've realized that I'm gay, and keeping that a secret from myself and those around me contributed to problems in my marriage. The thing is, I was raised Southern Baptist. My wife was Methodist. We raised our daughter Leanne to believe the word of Jesus Christ. I'd been taught practically since birth that being gay was a sin. So when I started experiencing attraction to other men, I simply bottled up those feelings and prayed harder. I've tried to raise Leanne not to hate anyone. The very few times we've talked about homosexuality, I told her to hate the sin, but love the sinner. We're all God's children, and while homosexuality is wrong, it doesn't mean that there's no forgiveness for people who repent. But I reached a point about 6 months ago where I just couldn't lie to myself anymore. I started seeing this guy, John. John is a Christian too, and he pointed me toward a lot of resources for LGBTQ people of faith. And he helped me see that maybe being gay isn't quite the horrible curse I thought it was. He always says, you have to love yourself before you can love somebody else. Which sounds like a cliche you'd find cross-stitched on a pillow, but I know he's right. And that's why I wanted to come out. I couldn't hide in the shadows anymore, living a lie and hating myself. But my biggest fear was telling Leanne. How would she react, especially since I was the one who told her being gay was a sin? Leanne's a pretty good kid, but she has a temper, and she's very opinionated. And since her mom died, she's been on a roller coaster of emotions. She's gotten better over the past year, but she's been through so much. Was it fair to put her through the shame of having a gay father too? I would lie awake at night in a cold sweat trying to plan what I'd say to her. I imagined a million horrible scenarios. Leanne would stop speaking to me, she'd call me disgusting, she'd tell me I was going to hell, she'd laugh at me, she wouldn't want to be my daughter anymore. It just seemed easier not to tell her at all. But John kept encouraging me to be honest. As it turned out, I didn't have to tell her. John was over one day and we were fooling around in the living room when suddenly the front door opened. "Hi, Dad," Leanne called. "We had early dismissal from school," and she stopped when she saw John and me on the couch. Her eyes went wide and her jaw dropped. "Leanne," I started, but she turned and ran into her room, slamming the door. My worst fears had come true. Leanne knew the truth about me, and she hated me for it. John offered to stay and help me talk to her, but I said I needed to do this alone. But once he left, instead of going to Leanne and talking to her, I stayed where I was, petrified. I couldn't deal with her censure. With the horrible things, I knew she'd scream at me if I tried to talk to her. So for the next few days, we avoided each other. She'd leave early for school in the mornings and find reasons to come back late. She ate dinner in her room. She barely said a word to me if I spoke to her. I thought about promising her that I'd change, that I'd stop being gay, go to conversion therapy, whatever it took. I'd promise her to be so discreet that none of her friends would ever find out, and she wouldn't have to be ashamed of me. But what about John? I was really starting to fall in love with him. How would he feel if he knew I was willing to throw him over just to save my daughter some embarrassment? But Leanne was the most important thing in my life. She was the only family I had since my wife passed away. I'd do anything for her. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. When Leanne came home from school, I told her we had to talk. She rolled her eyes but plopped down on the sofa in the living room. We stared at each other, and I could feel the hostility radiating off of her. That was it. The moment she would tell me I was disgusting and that she didn't want me as a father. I opened my mouth to tell her I was gay, but at the same time she said, "How could you date someone so soon after Mom?" I froze, stunned. "What?" I asked. "Mom's only been dead 2 years. You promised you loved her and only her forever. And now here you are dating someone new." I hadn't expected this at all. "I thought you were mad because I'm gay." I could barely get the word out. She waved her hand like she was shooing away a fly. "Oh my God, Dad, half of my friends are gay. Nobody cares about stuff like that anymore except old people." I truly didn't know what to say. What about, we've talked about how homosexuality is a sin in the Bible. I told you, no one thinks you're supposed to take the Bible literally except old people. I was so relieved. I could have cried. But I was a little hurt by the way she kept saying old people. I wasn't that old. "I just can't believe you're betraying Mom this way," she went on. In some ways, this issue was just as intimidating to discuss. I knew how much Leanne missed her mom. I hadn't thought enough about how much it would hurt her to see me with someone new even after all this time. Honey, it's been 2 years. I loved your mom very much. Even being attracted to men doesn't mean I didn't care about her deeply. But at some point, I do want to have a relationship again. Her eyes were watery, but she didn't cry. I just miss her. I know. Me too. I gave her a hug, and she clung to me. I don't want you to be unhappy, she sniffed finally. I just want Mom. Not that guy. His name's John, I said softly. And I think you might like him if you got to know him. She didn't have an answer, and I didn't push. Eventually, she did meet John. She was a little cold to him at first, but she's warming up. They both like the same TV shows, so they have something to talk about. I'm still a work in progress, and so is my family. I still struggle to reconcile my faith and my sexuality. Leanne helps with that. Seeing how open her generation is about different sexual orientations make me question the things I was taught. She says she gets some crap at school occasionally about me, but she's more than capable of shutting those kids down. Kids are wiser than we think. I was afraid to tell Leanne the truth, afraid that the very things I taught her would be what turned her against me. But she was clever enough to listen to her heart, and not to the,
"What do you think of this story?" Please feel free to share your comments and stories in the comment section below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel.